Hello and welcome to the Business of Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Eric Rosenberg. Over the years, I've had the privilege of helping businesses in the meetings and event industry grow and succeed. And I'm excited to share that experience with you. If you feel alone and overwhelmed, and if you're looking to take your business to the next level, improve your strategy and sales, and connect with like minded professionals, you are in the right place. I invite you to visit eventbusinessformula.com and join our community of event business owners dedicated to exponential growth. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And I'm extremely excited, as you can hear my voice today, because I have great guests. I'm very lucky to be able to speak with amazing people. But today, it's, I would say, the man, the legend. There's two types of people in this world, and especially in our industry, the people that knows him and the people that he knows. He has an amazing journey. He's an entrepreneur. He's built several businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my extreme pleasure and honor to speak today with the CEO and founder of Boldpush, Mr. Julius Solaris. Julius, how are you?
Oh my God, what an intro, Eric. Thank you so much. And such a pleasure to be with you again, I must say. Big fan of what you do, the impact you created for the events industry, and through the past 230 plus episodes of this podcast to entrepreneurs, want to be entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs. You're inspiring a new generation of business owners. And so I'm a big fan of what you're doing. And thank you. This is such a great opportunity.
Thank you very much. It's very kind. I mean, we're not going to start sending flowers to each other. And
well, I mean, we should until that though. I mean,
I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for years. Yes, you've been a guest on the podcast. I think your journey is a perfect example of the American dream. And I'd like to start with that. So for those who have been hibernating or that have been out of social media for the last 10 years or have just joined the industry and haven't heard about you yet, what is your journey, Julius?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about that, Eric, for the past years. And I feel, what I've been trying to do for the past almost 20 years now, it's been to find a way to monetize my passion for content and, for the events community, obviously, because that's my niche, though that's more of a transactional term. That's really my community and the people that I love. But obviously, I saw a lot of people with this same passion for content and all of that, sort of transitioning out of the events industry, doing something else, becoming real estate agents. Well, and that's amazing for them, I'm sure. But I felt it was impelling on me to find a way to make this sustainable on the long term and actually make it a business out of it so that I could stick around for as long as possible. It's I start from the principle that I need to create value every day for my community, for the events community. I wake up with that in mind. And so I feel that I have something to give and to share. But I have to be able to do that. And the only way to do that is to sustain my family and myself. And so, yeah, that's been sort of the issue number one since I started and trying to find a way to do it. And I've been optimizing that journey for the past 20 years. When I started the blog in 2007, back when I was in Italy, I'm Italian originally. And I was just back from Australia where I did my MBA at the time. And blogs were super, super hot, right? It's the TikTok of today. And, there was the OG content creators in a sense. They were bloggers. And so, yeah, the only topic I could talk about were events. And so I was like, okay, I want to start doing this and I want to become rich and famous doing that, which I'm still working on. But, at the end of the day.
On the rich part, maybe, although you've sold the business, but on the famous, I think it's done already.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, realistically is that probably a year in, I couldn't care less about that. I was starting to connect with people. I was starting getting passionate about the use of social media and technology in events. And there was just probably one person, right? The amazing Corbin Ball talking about it in the events industry. And, it was a close second entering that realm and sort of finding a passion in that very specific niche. And then I moved to the UK. I started my business. It be like the blog became a business after being a hobby for 3, 4 years. And then I moved to the US in 2016, having earned a visa thanks to the work that I did through my blog, which is still today to me, it's mind blowing how I managed to get that. Even my migration lawyer didn't actually believe it. We could make it, but we
The
did. And it was
EB1?
just incredible.
What is the EB1 visa?
Yeah, the EB1
Yeah,
visa.
we both have that.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt you because this your journey is fascinating, but there's one thing that I want to ask you about what you write and the way you write. So we both have an accent, but we understand each other. We both came here and got the extraordinary ability visa, which is phenomenal, thanks to all the people we know in the industry and what we've done. And when you write, what I like very much is that you tell it like it is. There is no sugarcoating. You tell it like it is. You tell your opinion, and I and many people appreciate that very much. My question is it because we are not born in America that we're like that, or is just it happens to be a coincidence?
Well, I feel that, obviously English is not my first language, right? I'm Italian. I was born and raised in Italy. I lived there until I was 20 years old or so. So spent most of my time there. My education, though, was in English. And so since university. And so I studied in English in university. I did my MBA in English. And so most of my career has been in English. And so I developed sort of a part of my mind dedicated to working just being in English. In fact, if you ask me in Italian some of the words about the events industry or everything that I write every day, I couldn't even start. Like I start sort of mumbling. But I feel at the same time, what happened was that not being a native speaker sort of releases a lot of the inhibitions that you have when you grow up with that language. I don't think I would be able to use the same level of directness in Italian at all. And so, because it's almost like a separate persona that shows up when I need to write, that has been defining itself through years and years of feedback from the community. Because you have to I think of this process as a constant feedback on your ideas. When you go out with content, you go out, you put something out, you get someone in the comments saying you're an idiot or this is amazing, and so that shapes inevitably what you become. And so right now, I guess it's a mix of all of those emotions, feedback, and like understanding what resonates with people within this industry that, makes it look so easy. But I can tell you it's a result of a very long process.
Oh, that's for sure. No, but I had in mind when we first came here with my family, I would ask direction, left or right? And the person said, I'm not sure. So I understand, but would you take left or right? I'm not sure. And I was like frustrated. Okay, I understand you're not sure, but would you go left or right? Until I understand that I'm not sure means I don't know, but it's a way to express themselves, maybe a little less direct, which again, in the way both of us are, the direct style. And also you'd say something about you're an idiot or that's brilliant. That's the type of conversation I would have with friends back then in Belgium in business. This is stupid. I would never do that. And then we had dinner together. So there was not a problem as such. But let's go back to you and let's go back to you're in the UK, you're creating your business. What triggered the will to come to the US? And how easy or difficult was it for you and your family to take that decision?
Well, listen, I've been obsessed with the idea of moving to the US since I was 17 years old, right? I came here on holiday. I did sort of study, whatever, 3 weeks away in a college in California, studying. I remember calling my mom, almost crying. And my mom was like, what is happening? Are you homesick? And I was like, no, I don't want to come back. I want to stay here. That was my call. And so I was obsessed with that idea. We're talking about, the late 90s. And so we're at peak of California and the American culture, completely different world from where we are today. But, I was obsessed with that idea. And so I tried by studying in a sort of English speaking university, then going to Australia. So I tried to be as close as possible. But obviously, when I was in the UK, which has been instrumental. I have a lot of connections and friendships. My son was born in the UK. So, we have a lot of, I got married in the UK. So there's a lot of roots that we have there. And so, yeah, I mean, at that time, most of the business was happening in the US. And most of the advertisers we were working with, being a media platform, starting from a blog that evolved into more of a media platform, the business was done in the US. I was traveling to the US quite a lot. And so it made only sense to at least explore. I remember actually I was back in LA into 2013 when my son was probably a couple of years old and we were like by the beach. And I told my wife, wait a minute here, I'm just going to go and speak to an immigration lawyer because I think like we have to make this happen. And so I went to speak to an immigration lawyer. And they said, probably like there's a remote chance if you try with this type of visa. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And the rest is history.
Every lottery winner has bought a ticket, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not enough to say that you want something, is actually to put it into action. So you're moving to the US, you're developing the business, and then one day you have the opportunity to sell the business. For all the business owners that are listening today, what's going into your mind? What is the motivation? And what do you tell yourself in terms of this is how I want to be working in the future, and this is the number I have in mind? Take us a little bit through the what's going on in your mind at that moment.
Yeah, I'm going to take a step back actually and say that as soon as I moved in the US to the US in 2016, like my approach to business completely changed. I think that, the US, it's an incredible business school. Just living here, everybody does business. Business is like, it's a religion. And so it completely changed my perspective on how I was doing things. And so I started immediately learning. At the time, I had started a second business called Show Themes, and we were doing WordPress templates for event websites. We had 6,000 customers. We're doing so well. And so in 2018, I couldn't keep both because I was running both. I was replying to every single customer support query coming in, plus writing, plus doing everything that I was doing. And so, again, I went on Google and searched for people looking to buy WordPress-based businesses, and I sold that business to begin with, which was the sort of the down payment for my mortgage. I started with that in 2017. And then I started to actually say, okay, this has been, at the time, it was 10 years doing the blog. And, it gets a little bit repetitive, I must say, right? After a while, and you kind of reach the peak of what you can do unless you change it in some way that makes it to the next step. And that usually means either getting outside funding, because you have to think I was operating with just one other employee and a bunch of freelancers, bootstrap completely. And we were pulling numbers that were beating most of the 30, 40, 50 people team competition that we had, right? And so I said, okay, if I want to take the next step here in America, I have to either sell it and become part of something bigger or, raise money. Raise money for media, it's extremely difficult because there's no ARR. There's no sort of recurring revenue. And so, yeah, I started going out to those that could be potentially interested. I worked with someone at the beginning to make introductions. And, I tried 3 times before being able to actually sell it. I've been close to sign contracts twice before, and then they backtracked at the last minute. I'm sure both of them are regretting it to the bone right now because it was like a steal looking back. I was so stupid at underselling it. So, yeah, I feel that, it's been a long, long process. It's been a process made. I remember in 2018, we were about to sign. And so a lot of the advertising that we would schedule for next year usually happened this time of the year, September, October, November. We had 0 because we were so focused on the sale. And then the sale didn't come through. They pulled back for some stupid reason. And, I had to basically, look at the next year with 0 sales done. And it was one of the lowest points ever. As a business owner, is one of the most difficult things I have to do because you have to feel I was working with my wife. And so all the eggs in one basket, no other baskets, that's it. So yeah, very, very difficult. But eventually, happy ending.
Wow, you make it sound simple, but you just describe in 2 minutes the roller coaster life of a business owner. Until it's done, it's not done. I even have stories that was before COVID. Somebody sell their business, and they really went to the bank and cashed the check, and the week after, everything started closing down.
Oh my God.
So you never know. You never know what can happen. And to your point, which I thought was very interesting, is the fact that you're running, you're doing everything, and it's a question of personal choice. Some people are building the unicorn. The business is going to be worth $1 billion. Others are looking at, you know what? If I do several millions in revenue, that's good. That's what I want. No one has the perfect blueprint. It's really dependent from one person to another. But when you decide to grow, at least today, because of technology, because of virtual assistant, which we didn't have even 10 years ago, this is something that is completely different as a business owner. So you're looking to partner and grow, and you sell the business. Then what? Because the two things happen in my experience with any business owners that are selling the business. First, somehow there's some sort of depressed moment, and I had that as well when I sold my first business, where yeah, you're happy, but it's not the same anymore. And the second thing, now you have to work for someone else.
Yeah. I mean, I went through that process of understanding what was coming after, like giving my baby out. Like a lot of people like reach out to me for the next 7 to 8 months saying, how do you feel about giving my baby out? That was like my baby. What are you talking about? This is like a 12 years old teenager that I want to get rid of. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want him to be, or her to be around me anymore. Cause like we both grew outside of each other, and we want to be separate. And so I knew what was going into. What I didn't know, since I sold in 2019, September, was that 5 months later, 6 months later, we would just be in a completely different world. And so, we sold to Skift, which was the sexy travel brand, independent, very much like us, but on a bigger scale. So a perfect fit, amazing team, amazing people. We sold to them, but obviously as soon as COVID hit and we were like about to launch our own first in-person event, about to do a lot of cool stuff, what happened was that, we were back to square one, because obviously travel was incredibly impacted. Events were impacted, but we were extremely well positioned on event technology and virtual events and stuff like that. And so we ended up having the biggest year ever for the blog during the pandemic. But that also meant that I had to be back being an entrepreneur, having all of the things that I thought were going away with a sale, meaning focusing more on the creative aspect, less on the business aspect, which was my priority at the time. And so I had to actually manage a business like I was the business owner. And, we were some of the best performing within the portfolio at the time, if not the best performer, because of all what we were able. And we did 4 to 5 virtual events with like 60,000 people attending. These are numbers that will never come again in the industry, probably. And so it was just a monumental impact. But by the end of it, I was completely burnt out. I was like completely, okay, that's it. And we're going to make another move. And that was my move. I moved out essentially as soon as obviously my time had to be completed.
Yeah, absolutely. You say something very interesting. So that it was not my baby, give it away. I recently attended my EO Deal Exchange conference, where as a member of EO, we come together, those who want to invest in a business, sell a business, or acquire a business. And the Damon Gersh was the keynote speaker. He sold Maxons in New York, which is the company that you see everywhere that is doing damage repair. They help after 9/11. And he says something extremely profound that I wish every entrepreneur will hear once in their life. He said, people say we are entrepreneur. He said, are you an entrepreneur? He said, no, I'm a human being, and being entrepreneur is part of my identity, but it's not the entire identity.
Totally.
And I thought it was beautiful.
I can relate. Absolutely. That's a great quote. Yeah, I think it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, like the effort, I moved right after that to work for regular companies, something that I hadn't done since 2010. So, 10 years working for myself. I went to work for remote teams, but still working for others. And it was an interesting journey because, yeah, it was completely different. It was during the pandemic. But, I realized at the time that the effort that it takes to be an entrepreneur today, to speak to your audience, right? Because I had to recoup the energies to then start my business when I was laid off, right? Because I ended up being laid off by Hopin, the fastest growing company ever. I was laid off in around, I can't remember, like early 2022 or something like that. And so I had to regroup and find my inner strength to start a business. Now, that moment for all of your audience, I feel is probably some of the most exciting, but at the same time, scary moment. And looking back 2 years now, the amount of work that it's ahead of you, it's just incredible. So this is why I ask, I'm still asking, I'm reaching out to your audience here. Please send me a message on LinkedIn. If you find the formula, since we are on the event business, we are on the business formula podcast here, I want to hear if you found the formula here to start something while being centered on yourself and everything else. Because to me, it's almost like impossible. Like, how do you start a business? How do you make it happen? When all of that effort is needed, when you're by yourself, you're bootstrapping things, you don't have millions of dollars of funding. So how do you do it? And looking back, there's no other way for me. Like, you gotta hustle. It's a lot of work. It's a fantastic type of work. Some of the best satisfactions of my life to have built another business today that it's doing incredibly well. But it's been tough.
I have not maybe the blueprint exact for everyone, but I would say two things to your point. The first one, I believe that any organization, from solopreneur to the largest company in the world, you need a face of the business. You need somebody who's the face of the business. That's the first thing. The second thing, when you start a business, you bootstrap a business, the mindset I always have when I start growing a business is the following. Who else can do what I'm doing right now? Systematically, from the first time I'm doing something, and I document everything, so that when somebody else is gonna start doing it, they will know how I want things to be done. What is the culture in the company? What are the values that we are abiding by? And that's the ground work, if you want, to start thinking, well, all the things that I'm doing, who else can do it? And I have this little exercise. If you want to do it, if anybody's listening, I always, this is one of my favorite exercise. You list everything you're doing for 2 weeks. During 2 weeks, you list everything you're doing every 15 minutes. Obviously, if you have a phone call of an hour, you just put an hour. And then you have 3 columns: do, delegate, stop. Stop, you start with the stop column. Everybody's got a to-do list. Few people have a stop doing list. But there's some things that, might not be necessary anymore. And then you go back to the do. I give a very simple example. Driving the kids at school in the morning, okay? You can do it. Your spouse can do it. You can do it with the neighbors, with the school bus. Or you can decide, like I do, to do it because it's my pleasure and good time with my kids. So that's something that I decide that I want to do very consciously because it gives me pleasure. But then the rest is the delegate column. And there are so many opportunities today. And that's leading me to another question I have for you. But it's so many opportunities.
I love it.
To bring things together and say, this, I'm going to work with 3 different virtual assistants. I'm going to work with a 1099. I want to work, and I'm going to partner with this company, and we're going to do affiliate program, or we're going to do a share of the revenue, whatever it is. But the question I have that actually triggered me to reach out to you again. You said something that I was like, wow, that's interesting. When you say, I'm changing my structure, I want to be alone. And I'm going to surround myself with other people, but I want to be alone. So can you take us to that journey? Because you've done it all. You started, you grow it, you sold it, you work in large group, you're smaller, and now this is where you are in your journey. So tell us why are you doing that?
So these are very disorganized thoughts, right? Because I never think about the business side of things. I always think about what are event professionals and the events industry, where is it going? That's my top of mind. And so I never organize these thoughts very well. And I realize when I share them on social, because I'm using some social media today just to share that journey, like threads. For example, I don't talk about events there. I just talk about my journey as a content creator today. And so, yeah, it's interesting, right? So for deeply creative type of work, which I feel I belong to, I feel my environment is a creative environment. Yes, it is a B2B environment. It's very business driven, but that means you have to be even more creative than being on a consumer side sometimes to make statistics, for example, sexy and stuff like that. So, for me, it's deeply creative work. What I've experienced in the past as an analyst of media in general and looking at what happens with media, independent media, traditional media, is that as soon as you start scale, as soon as you start introducing other levels of reports and people that work with you, you start diluting the content. You were saying it, right? You need a face for the business. For content, it's even more. Content, like all the big publications, have been shaped at the beginning around someone. Then they've transitioned into something else. But we can all agree that TechCrunch today is not TechCrunch that used to be with Michael Arrington in the 2000s, right? It's a completely different proposition, right? And so I feel that when you're doing deeply creative work, when you start adding those layers, first off, you have to justify those layers from a business perspective. And that means that as soon as you have to justify, your revenue targets double. And to match those revenue targets, you have to really lend yourself to sponsorship, transactional type of content that devalues the brand almost immediately. It's incredible. If you see the top creators today, they either have their own thing going on, like if you look at Mr. Beast, like they can't even sponsor him anymore because it would be too expensive for them to buy that many impressions. And so he has its own brands, so he can monetize by himself. So, but it's a very concentrated, focused effort on one message. You're not going to get 15 different messages in a video, which is what B2B media traditionally tends to do. And all of a sudden, if you look at whatever B2B vertical, I feel very confident saying that with a few exceptions, you will find a ton of transactional sponsor content that is like meh, like I don't care. Plus, with all like the depression of people clicking on links, not going on websites, it's a nightmare. And so for me, building a team right now would be immediately killing my business. And so I have to stay focused on delivering for myself, be focused on delivering on the content first. It's like last year, I brought in some people, and as soon as I started bringing in people for the consulting part, not for the media part, because we do consulting as well, I was like, okay, I'm managing 4 or 5 consultants now, and this is my job. And I don't want to have that job. And I see the rest of the content quality going down, not performing as much. And so I want to still retain consulting because consulting makes me a better content creator because it gives me the experience that I'm sharing all of my consulting experience. Nobody does that in the events industry. Everything they have to, they think they have to protect because they have the special sauce of whatever, when information is available everywhere right now. And so I share and document everything that I work with. And so, but like I'm trying to find a way where I do it by myself for as much as I can. Then I work for some freelancers. I have 5 to 6 freelancers that I rotate depending on the project, but I have no full-time employees. I don't plan to have any full-time employees. I want to see also with AI sort of around us, what is my limit? Where can I get to with AI? Because like I can tell you to do what I do today, I needed to have 7 to 8 full-time people 10 years ago to do what I do today. So for sure, I have the tools today to edit my stuff. I don't need an editor anymore. Design my stuff. Canva, it's more than, if you have some templates, you can do it. Essentially, all the platforms are self-serve, easy. Like I don't need to have a developer, which I used to have. And so, all of these roles are essentially gone. And so I want to stretch the limit and do an experiment and see where I can get to in terms of revenue.
That's very interesting. And listening to you, it makes all the sense. And you're not alone. You have those tools, you have some freelance. I would be the one thinking like you and saying, okay, Canvas, but I don't want to spend time learning Canvas. Who can do it for me? And might not be a full-time person. Which, by the way, bring me back to where we are both coming from, Europe. I don't know if it's the same in Italy, but in Belgium, I was raised with know your strength, know your weaknesses, and work on your weaknesses. Until one day I woke up and said, what? No, I don't want to waste time working on my weakness. I want to work on my strength and hire people whose strength are my weaknesses, which is different aspect.
I love that.
You say something very interesting, Julius. You talk about the quality of the content, and God knows how great the quality of your content is. But I read recently a book that's been published several years ago by Ryan Holiday.
Of
And
course.
yes, Ryan Holiday, Stoicism, everything. But one of his first book was Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Yeah.
And he's talking about this race to click, to bite, to put out fake news that would attract people and click because that's how they would be paid. How do you see the overall influencer world today compared to the quality of what you are doing?
That's a great question. I feel that, what I love about being a content creator in B2B is that you can mess around. Like you can take a selfie of yourselves with your six pack or, whatever, your, nice looking face and like get 1,000 likes. Like who does that in B2B, right? There's no point. I see some people trying to do that, right? And put selfies back in, but like, what is the value? Like at the end of the day, people are filtering off all of the noise when it gets to social media. Now, I've been a very big detractor of social media for a long time, being a business owner that relies on a website, centralizing all the content in a website. It's the number one rule if you're in media, right? You got to drive the traffic to websites. Yep. Now there's the concept of zero-click marketing, which Amanda Natividad, like she's great. She created this concept of you have to satisfy everything within that post. Like you're not sending people away anywhere. This is like the big shift that has happened, which is a positive shift to me because I feel it's the result, yes, of algorithms. It's the result of social networks wanting you to be there, but it's also the results on years and years of clicks into content that sucked and that didn't deliver on the premise, right? And so I feel that today, as a content creator, which who uses social media first, you got to be able to capture the attention, deliver, and then potentially deplatform these people to your own platform, to your newsletter, to whatever it is. And it's such a more complicated skill. But then you're just like, why should I do that? Why should I give my effort to these social networks? Well, you do it because you got a social network effect. And I can tell you this, I've been traveling the events industry. I've been a keynote speaker for 15 years. I've been all over the world. I spoke in 17 countries for hundreds of thousands of attendees. What I've seen in the past 2 years since I started creating content in LinkedIn, it's never happened to me, ever. And I've been keynote forever. Like, it's not like people didn't know who I was 5, 6 years ago. But like the amounts of like people reaching out and selfie requests and stuff like that, that creates a whole new level of engagement with what is so personal. Like the way it's coming to your phone on where you spend most of your time. It's a completely different experience. And so very powerful. But then again, not all creators are equal. What I love about B2B is that focus is like, if you look at all the top creators in B2B, there's always substance behind them. There's never, some fluff, whatever, unless they're B2B2C type of things. Those that talk about content creators that talk about creating content. There is kind of a Ponzi scheme to sell their own thing, right? Or, business creators talking about business and starting your own business. I'm sure you see a lot of these selling their own courses. And you're like, if you're a billionaire, why you're doing a course? Right? Why you're like, you spending your time doing Twitter threads if you're a billionaire, right? So, there's always like this misconception. So I feel that, there's different breeds, but B2B, it's amazing for that.
Absolutely. Now you make me laugh because, yeah, I sometimes encounter some people that are telling people how to start a business, how to grow a business, and then you ask, "Have you done it before? Were you
Exactly.
successful?" And yeah, whatever. But
Yeah.
to speak to the quality of what you do and your career, you're now being recognized by EIC as Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Congratulations, very
Incredible.
well deserved.
Appreciate
Uh,
it.
and that's, I think it speaks to exactly what you're putting out there and the quality and the constant quality of what you're providing. And I want to take this opportunity of having you on the podcast to end this conversation today by asking you what you see. What should we be paying attention to? What should business owners, especially event business owners, should be paying attention to with what about the economy, AI, technology? What are your advice and what are you seeing?
Yeah, no. So first off, getting this recognition, it's incredible for me because I've always been the sort of contrarian voice in the industry. And so to be recognized from the industry that you've been pushing to be better, always with good intentions in mind, never being, destructive in the feedback. I feel
Absolutely.
that's not
Yeah.
a battle I want to fight. But yeah, no, said that, I feel we're coming off of the biggest 3 years we've ever seen in the events industry. So, in terms of attendance and going back and excitement, we onboarded new audiences like, marketing teams today, especially in B2B, are spending way more than ever before, probably in terms of budgets to events. And so, whether you operate in the events industry or not, I feel there's a huge opportunity today for you to discover what the opportunity of doing events is, which, it's very contrarian to what is happening all around, right? It's counterintuitive in a sense, because if you look at, what we can achieve with AI today, I can have a perfectly credible Julius speaking, online in a video that is not me and it's AI generated. And so all of a sudden, that decreases enormously the trust that we have in brands and how we connect with content specifically. And so, that I can be, as strong as I am behind a keyboard on writing a post on LinkedIn, that it can be done with a ton of AI tools today, taken from here and there. But when you see me perform on stage, then you make a real realization if I'm the real deal, if I'm just some, fluffy
Yep.
speaker that doesn't know what they're talking about, that has been good at using AI. And so only events have that capability of showing who to trust and how to trust. And so I feel that what we're experiencing right now is going back to in person, because literally is the only way for us to touch and see who's in front of us, who we're doing business with. And that's incredibly powerful for the industry. I remember, I want to recall an interview that Sam Altman did on a podcast, and he said, being asked what is the sector, or what is the type of work of job that can flourish with the rise of AI, he said, well, I don't know, maybe some premium, human type of experience. Sam, it's events. That's how we call them. It's not premium experience of sorts. That's what it is. And it's like he's saying it that is going to become the premium type of interaction that you're going to have on a brand level. And so a lot of companies are realizing that. Media as well is realizing that. If you look at media, the business model is events right now for media, right? No, the subscriptions are not being sold. Advertising is going down. So, all these media companies, if you look at Semaphore, Time Magazine, and, the Financial Times, they have humongous, event teams. And so they're investing in it, as we've done for the music industry, where Taylor Swift is moving billions and changing countries' GDPs with her tour because of the power that events have. Events have become the monetization model for so many verticals, and I'm extremely excited about the future of that. The more we go forward, the more people will want to go and connect online. This is what we got through the pandemic, when people were saying that events were going to die forever and that virtual was going to be the future, and we didn't believe it.
Absolutely. And I'm like, you're totally convinced that people are looking to have the face to face. And even if they have an online community, at some stage, they always want to come in person and see each other. What's your take on people say there's even 50%, more than 50% of people working in the industry that have changed
Yeah.
since the pandemic. What's your take on that?
So some numbers say 70% actually, 70. So it's a scary number. That means first off that we did a very poor job as an industry to retain our talent during the pandemic. This is something that pains me because we've lost some incredible talent. Some of them are coming back, and it's amazing. Some of them just decided to retire, change where they can deal with the level of PTSD that they got through the pandemic. This was a shock. Like a lot of people lost businesses they worked for like 20 years or whatever, like they lost them forever. And so they weren't able to pivot. They weren't able to keep going. It was too much happening. They were losing family members. Like, it was crazy time for a lot of these people. And so we did a poor job in that. And I hope that the industry does better in creating security, but also raising the profile of people that work within this industry, which is still, when you say you work in events, you're like a party planner or whatever, you plan weddings and whatever, with all due respect for them, but business events is something different. Sports special events is something different, and weddings and the likes is something, again, different. And so for us, the meetings and events industry, the business events industry, what we provide right now, it's crucial, but there's almost no lobbying for us. There's not even a tax code if you're an event professional in the US. And so more has to be done in that sense. But what we're having now is that a bunch of young people that felt like, okay, I'm gonna go in events that feels like the jet setter type of lifestyle, and I could travel and meet people and be out. They're realizing very quickly that this is like one of the hardest industry to work in. There's no weekends, travel, always on, play hard, party hard, very hard, that it's like has an impact on you. And so I think our job now is to sort of help these people transition into the industry. I got, by the content that I got on LinkedIn, probably 70% of the people that read my content don't have a clue about what I did before writing on LinkedIn. And, to me, that is amazing because it means I'm still the point of contact for those entering the industry, trying to understand more, trying to find a way within it, which we've done traditionally with the blog. We've been helping students and those that wanted to get involved into events. And so I feel we need more of that with a collective input of people not thinking about turning as much profit as possible in the short term, banging the bugs, trying to get as much as possible right now because things are looking up. What happens if things are looking down? That's my question. And this is what the message should be for the rest of the industry.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. And also the fact that if you own your business, always be prepared to what comes next in terms of the economy. At least know what decision you will have to take and by when, if you have all your dashboard and you know where you're going ultimately with your business. I always said, even if you have to take tough decision, it's better to take tough decision, the sooner the better, than just not taking decision and losing the business, because then everybody lose at that time. My last question on that, what you see, what about M&A? What about mergers and acquisitions? Always looking at that with business owners. The SBA just lowered their rate. We're looking at maybe a very difficult year. People are talking about that. So what do you see in terms of mergers and acquisition and in terms of the multiple that people can hope for or we're asking for?
Yeah, I feel that, if you run an event business and, you own a portfolio of events or like one big event, now is the time. Now's the time to sell, because I feel that I've never seen, I don't know, Eric, you've been in this industry probably longer than I have, and you've seen different cycles of acquisitions, but like what we've seen in the past 3 years, it's unprecedented. Like the amount of transactions that have been like from a purely, from both ends, from a number of transactions and the value of those transactions. If you look at Tarsus being acquired, Tarsus being acquired by Informa, and then Informa going on a shopping spree that is continuing. Just recently they bought a Sensil with, Money 2020 and Cannes Lion. On the other end, you have Hive Group that was acquired by a private equity. Now it's acquiring Possible Event. and others. And so I was expecting more M&A on the tech side, which is completely dead, other than Cvent, obviously being, the backed by Blackstone now on a shopping spree. They just bought Splash, which is a big acquisition in terms of brands. At least we don't know the sort of monetary value of that. So, but like in terms of events, that's where the opportunity is. Like if you're on an event company right now, that is the opportunity. Multiples, who knows about multiple? I think like a seven buy to 8 buy is what I've been hearing right now of your EBITDA. This is what I'm hearing around. So that could be interesting from some unofficial conversations. But there's a couple of other companies being acquired that I know of in the events industry, and I know some other big name events are going to be acquired. Informa just bought VidCon a couple of weeks ago from Paramount. The Informa, it's like the one to watch. I mean, they're obviously crushing it. They own a portfolio that it's just unbelievably huge.
Yeah, I think it just on the point of multiple, what I see, it's probably more between 3 and 5 max.
Yeah.
If you have like a 7-figure business, and if you're getting into the 8-figure business, then you can hope to have the 7 and the 8.
Could be.
And then again, it's not tech for sure. Julius, I would spend hours speaking with you and listening to you as usual. My 2 last questions. First, how do people get in touch with you and how do they subscribe to your newsletter?
Of course. So Julius at boldpush.com, very easy. Or insights.boldpush.com is where you can find my newsletter. Or just like find Julius Solaris on LinkedIn. You'll find all the information there. It's easy to subscribe to the newsletter from there as well. LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time. So I'll see you there for sure.
Wonderful. And my last question, you never know who's listening. One day, I was always giving the example. I was interviewing my friend Richard Kane, who created VeryJet, with the Cirrus Jet and of
course
Cirrus Vision Jet. And somebody was listening. Next thing you know, they were negotiating 17 FBOs. So,
all right.
In Julius Solaris' life, private or professional, doesn't matter. What is one of your dream that if anyone's listening and they can help you with?
Oh, wow. This is a loaded question. I wasn't ready for this. Yeah, I feel that, after this business, I'm probably going to start my final one. And that's going to be on lifestyle, on business creation, and, on that. And so if people want to build businesses in that sense, I'd be curious or they have built businesses in that sense, I'd be curious to connect and know what's next. But yeah, that's no spoilers, but that's what I'm thinking about these years, because this business is already going and I'm super happy with it. We'll see what's next.
Wonderful. Well, if they want to build a business or grow their business, they know they can come and talk with me and I'll help them for sure. And anything that you do with lifestyle and that you are dreaming of, Julius is there. I thank you so much, my friend, for taking the time. I love everything about what you're doing and all the insight you shared today. And I look forward to seeing you in person very soon.
Can't wait. Thank you, Eric. Such a pleasure and an honor to be with you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business of Meeting podcast. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you enjoyed the show, the most important thing you can do is leave a review and share it with your colleagues. It really helps spread the word. I truly appreciate your support. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't forget to visit eventbusinessformula.com to learn more about how we are helping even business owners like you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.